I'm Terence Kamal. Just this morning, out of the blue and unplanned, I spent a lot of time deliberating early this morning whilst the rest of the family was asleep and reflecting on the pain of having lost my dad and the difficult life that he had led. And what is important that I took from that while reflecting on that is some of the key messages that he had regularly provided to family, friends, and communities across South Africa, as well as elsewhere, on how to lead. And he didn't use the words of significance or impact, but he spoke of actually being aware. And at that stage, the phrases of mindfulness didn't exist. But he spoke of at least reflecting on the lives that we lead, reflecting on what we live for and what's important. And some of those important thoughts I wanted to share with you today include a phrase that he popularly shared at funerals and other memorials, saying, people come to funerals, and the tragedy of coming to funerals is they all sit around, deliberate and sympathize and empathize with the family, and then leave away from there as if they are not in line at some point for their own end of their existence. And that created the reflection on people live oblivious that we have a finite time. Another one of his well quoted phrases was, we live and exist from the womb to the tomb. From the day we're born, the clock starts. But many of us live like we will live forever in the way we live in our selfish perspective and world, and don't realize how much everyone around us can learn, and we can create value for them in many ways, in enhancing their lives and value in what we do as human beings, in our work environment, and as family members. And they are equally important today in the pandemic world that we live. And regrettably, my dad passed on in the middle of the first wave in July 2020. And it is a forced reflection for me from this morning, looking at some of those messages and how they resonate more true. He also spoke of phrases of, in cosmic time, our life is only 7 seconds in this world. And if you look at that collectively, if we were to then superimpose the 7 seconds into his phrases of we live and the clock starts from the womb to the tomb, how much can we appreciate? And I reflected on that actively this morning with my family, and I was in tears at some point, speaking of how he died, a poor man, and deprived and struggled, him and my mom, to build the life that we have today, and how much of his life he dedicated to community. And sometimes when I wear my business hat, I said he could have made large sums of money if people paid for the time and service he provided to community in various aspects, and many of you may be well aware of that. But then when you put the human aspect approach and without a business lens, you start to realize, when I have relationships with some of his students from the early 80s that have become family friends and now considered as family, these relationships span decades. As an educator and a teacher, if he was able to build relationships that span decades, that to date, people still speak in awe of his name and what he did, whether it was bringing lunch to schools or buying fireworks and clothing for kids that didn't have to celebrate. And ironically, we had very little at that time to share. But he shared his love and care and support. And people of those communities remember that even to date. I have telephone calls as recent as this week where his ex-students and our friends, and as we consider them family, reflect on what he did for them and how it changed their path and trajectory in their lives. And it's important to remember this, because as much as we believe we're different from our parents and our family and we grow from, we can learn from their lives, we can learn from their journeys. And just as what I call this morning a random rambling and reflection, it's important that we take these lessons, as I do from my dad, to reflect on what are we doing to create value, create respect, build trust, build relationships. But seeing it in the context that our journey from the womb to the tomb had begun a long time ago, and the clock has already been set. We worry about egos, we worry about intangibles that we believe are important to us, which in some respects may be important, but does it fit in the bigger picture of leading a life of significance and being significant to community and the people that we serve every day, starting from our own families, our communities, and in the business worlds that we exist? Do we appreciate that our businesses and organizations have a name, but it's constituted of fellow human beings who every day in different forms and shapes have different struggles and needs. And sometimes a compassionate word or a willingness to listen and understand and appreciate their context is more valuable than any monetary gain or value that you could provide to them. And the same with the people that we serve. Appreciate and understand that not just as healthcare providers, but people in any environment, you're dealing with human beings with their own needs, wants, fears, and concerns. And if we can share a moment in time to relate to them, engage with them, not only can we assist them potentially, but we can also learn from them. And every day, it could help us become better human beings, better fellow citizens of the world, and importantly, realize that our finite time is limited, but the ability to share, love, care, laughter, and relationships is what we will leave behind as our only legacy. Stay well and stay safe.